In case you miss it, here's a Sports Animal Rewind.
Time to talk some recruiting. We bring in from 24/7 Sports national recruiting reporter Keith Niebuhr joins us from 24/7 Sports. Hey, Keith, Vince Ferrara and Evan Woodbery. How you doing, Keith?
I'm great. What are you guys up to?
Well, we're talking football and talking recruiting. Imagine that here in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Yeah, go figure.
Well, Keith, just let's get your general thoughts on what the job that Butch Jones has done in recruiting overall so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to come as no surprise. I'm sure they've done a great job. There's been a lot of buzz about the program, and I live down in Atlanta, guys, and I'm hearing it down here, hearing it, feeling it, seeing it. And by seeing it, I mean that I saw the Vols coaches in person this spring during the evaluation period, and they were as active as any team in the country in the Atlanta area. And obviously, this is a crucial area for them, and it always has been. Also, I think they benefit. They've got the legacy kids, obviously, but the state of Tennessee, and I was talking to one of my coworkers about this the other day, is kind of on what the kids call the come up, I guess. It's getting better and better every year, and that is going to benefit Tennessee. It's also going to benefit Vanderbilt, you would have to imagine, but it's making, if you don't have to go that far for every kid, you're going to be, it's going to make your life a little easier, obviously. And there's just a lot of buzz about the program right now. And so, we've got them number 4 in the team rankings. I think that's phenomenal. I mean, that's what you want now. Again, it's not a huge surprise because whenever there's a new coach at what you call a big name elite type program in Tennessee, for all intents and purposes, for decades has been an elite program. So little down stretches here and there, while aggravating to the fans, really the big picture is it's still Tennessee. So when a program like Tennessee has some down years, to the kids, it's still a big name program. And so they see opportunity. They see opportunity at a big name program, and that's what Tennessee gives them. And also, these guys, this staff, they have a plan, and as they say, we have a plan, and it's proven to work. Now, the truth is, every staff in the SEC, you could say the same thing at their previous stops, but the kids are buying into it, and they like what they're seeing, they like what they're hearing.
Keith, I'm wondering, you mentioned the state of Tennessee, and that's something we've talked about a lot. And maybe 10 or 15 years ago, the conventional wisdom was if you take out Memphis, there weren't a whole lot of prospects here, or at least not that many in it compared to other surrounding states. Why do you think Tennessee is on the upswing as a state, and how valuable do you think that can be?
Yeah, that's a good question. You really can't answer that. These things go in cycles, obviously. But I will say this, having an NFL team there, because I remember when I grew up, I think the biggest thing in Nashville was basketball, was Vanderbilt basketball. And so now the biggest thing in Nashville, you've got a pro football team. And so people think football is on their minds all the time. And I know they were with the Tennessee Vols and all that, but I think having a pro team probably has a little bit of impact because to the kids, they see the rich guys rolling around in their big cars and all that, and maybe that's something they can shoot for. But I don't know. Other than that, I just don't know. I think it's cyclical. Football is so big in the South, and it's just getting better and better, to be honest with you. I mean, I had multiple coaches tell me Atlanta was the epicenter of college football recruiting. And they couldn't think of a place where there were more prospects. And Nashville, Memphis, Chattanooga. Chattanooga's not great, but there are good players there. But, these things, you just can't put a finger on it, to be honest with you. It just happens sometimes.
Visiting with Keith Niebuhr from 24/7 Sports national recruiting reporter joining us here on the new Sentinel Sports page. Some of the specific guys in the 2014 class that are committed, obviously a lot of attention goes to Jalen Hurd, Todd Kelly. Who are some of the other guys in this 2014 class that you really like, Keith?
Well, I think that Trayvon Polk is a guy that is just incredibly under the radar. That's a running back from just north of Atlanta. Plays at Milton High School. It's a school that produced about, 8 to 10 Division I kids last year. I love his size. He's in that 5'9", 195, 200-pound range, built like an Emmett Smith type. You know what I mean? One of those short, compact guys. A lot of muscle, a lot of leg strength, good quickness, good toughness, good footwork. I mean, he's just a guy that not a lot of people talk about. He split carries with Peyton Barber last year, and Peyton Barber signed with Auburn. So he wasn't going to be a guy that had 2,700 yards, but very well could have. So I think he's a guy that I really like. A guy that's getting a lot of buzz from people in our industry, Joe Henderson, the defensive end from up in Cleveland. And Tennessee's gotten 2 kids out of Ohio, and I think that's significant. You'll notice Kentucky's gotten a bunch of kids out of Ohio. So maybe these kids like the lure of the SEC, but that's a kid that can do a lot of things. And obviously Tennessee needed help on the defensive line. There's no question about that. I mean, gosh, I'm on the road traveling a lot on Saturdays, but I saw enough of Tennessee football to know that they needed to really shore up that area. So I think he can be an impact guy. And then Orlando Brown is a kid that a lot of people talk about because of the genes, because of his size. He has a lot of work ahead of him. Let's not kid ourselves. But as Mo Collins, the ex-Oakland Raider and Florida Gator offensive lineman, told me after watching Orlando last year, he said he's got the clay. It's there. He's just got to keep working. He's just got to get a better understanding of the game, get more agile, knock some more of the baby fat off. But you don't get 6'8", 345. You don't find that every day. So again, I think if people are patient with Orlando, I think he can have a productive career. But I know he wants to get in and contribute right away, and they all do. But offensive line is a developmental position, and unless you're Anthony Munoz, you probably shouldn't be starting as a true freshman anyway. But those are three guys that I really like for different reasons.
Keith, you talked about this a little bit earlier, but
yeah.
Butch is not the only guy that's making some waves among the new coaches in recruiting, and Gus Malzahn at Auburn and Stoops at Kentucky. And I just wonder, I mean, not that SEC teams need more incentives to change coaches, but you look at where Tennessee's recruiting might be if Dooley were still there or if Chiswick were still at Auburn, and you just wouldn't have that same momentum coming off of a losing season. When you get a new coach in there, you have excitement and momentum and enthusiasm. I mean, this is kind of a trend that isn't just happening in Tennessee. It's, the other coaches the other schools in the SEC with new coaches are also doing pretty well on the recruiting trail, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, let's give Franklin and Hugh Freeze a little credit here, because they really jumped out of the gate and got it going at two places where people said you really couldn't win consistently. So yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one because, like I said, with Tennessee and Auburn, these are elite programs, and Auburn's had 3 winning seasons since the mid-'90s, or since I want to say 93. So 3 unbeaten seasons since 93. Now, that puts it in elite status. And so again, kids see opportunity. Auburn's a big name. Tennessee's a big name. But how is Kentucky doing? How is Vanderbilt doing it? How's Ole Miss doing it? Just great recruiting, aggressiveness. The thing at Kentucky is these guys, the head coach and some of the other guys, they came from big programs. And they weren't going to settle for a drop-off in talent recruitment. So Mike Stoops, which Stoops is at Kentucky. So when Coach Stoops gets to Kentucky, he doesn't say, look, I'm going to drop down in my recruitment. I'm going to keep recruiting the same guys I was recruiting at Florida State. There is no reason Kentucky can't win. That's what he's thinking. Now, the reality is it's going to be difficult. You can't win with one recruiting class. You just can't do it. Kentucky hasn't had a 10-win season since the 70s. Kentucky hasn't won the SEC since the 70s. But you have to like the start that the Wildcats have put together under this coaching staff. But you can't explain this. I mean, the general rule of thumb is that it takes a couple years to get rolling in recruiting when you're new. That first spring, suppose you get hired in December. That first spring when you're out evaluating players, you're not even really supposed to be talking to them at their school. So you're having to build relationships over the phone with kids. And yet these guys are still recruiting. They're still getting kids on campus. They're still getting kids to buy into their program, to their system, and to the belief that they can win at a place that hasn't consistently won before, and that's Vanderbilt, and that's Ole Miss. Now, Ole Miss had, but we're talking 50 years ago, the last time they consistently won. Vanderbilt, when was the last time they were a consistent winner? And I think you have to give Franklin and Freeze a lot of credit, because I think they are the ones that got the ball rolling. And people see, looking at Kentucky, they can say, look, these schools did it, we can do it too. And so far, they have, at least on the recruiting trail.
Visiting with Keith Niebuhr from 24/7 Sports National Recruiting Reporter here on the new Sentinel Sports page, Vince Ferrara and Evan Woodbery. Let me ask you about a couple of specific guys. Dory Jackson from California, he's looking at a number of SEC schools he's planning to visit this summer. How legit do you think is his interest in Tennessee?
Yeah, I think it's pretty legit. And also, I think if my memory's correct, now I'm not talking to him. I get this information because he's a West Coast guy from some of our other guys, but he's a track guy too. Historically, Tennessee's put out some pretty good players in track, or pretty good athletes. I remember seeing Willie Galt compete when I was a kid, being blown away, by the way, by that.
Yep.
But so I think they're a legitimate factor, although we think that maybe Florida might have a little bit more of an edge at this point. And, obviously they've won back-to-back national championships in track, but these things can change, on a dime.
Visiting with Keith Niebuhr here on the New Sentinel Sports page. Now, what about some guys in the Atlanta there in the Georgia area? There's a ton of guys, obviously, but who are there guys there in Georgia area, obviously besides the Dylan Bates, who a lot of people think is going to decide and pick Tennessee at the opening. Give me your thoughts on Dylan and some other guys that you think Tennessee's in good position for.
Well, we'll start with Dylan. That's a good looking dude right there now. I mean, he's tall, he's got long arms, and obviously he's got the bloodline. He's just like this real charismatic kid. I think he's going to end up at Tennessee too. And I think people that haven't met him are really going to be impressed by him, not only with football but just the way he carries himself. He got great range, runs well, can jump. I mean, he's a terrific athlete. You know, he really is. I mean, this isn't just some guy that's getting a scholarship offer because he's a legacy. He's a fantastic athlete. But a guy in Atlanta is a middle linebacker I keep an eye on, and it's Kevin Muhan at Norcross High School. Mm-hmm. And, that's a guy, I think that he played with Jason Kroom, or that's the school that produced Jason Kroom. And this guy is a big inside linebacker, 6'1", 6'2", but about 245. I mean, just a big kid. Looks really impressive in pads. Was on a state championship team last year. I think he's all vol. I mean, things can obviously change, but I mean, I see him walking around with the Tennessee, bracelet type of thing, and his teammates say that he's got his whole wardrobe consists of Tennessee shirts right now. That's usually a good indicator. You know what I mean? So I think that's the kid to keep an eye on. DJ Smith, the cornerback of Marietta Walton, excellent player. He's somebody else to keep an eye on. Look, like I said, guys, there's a lot of buzz about Tennessee down here. And I think those are a few players to keep an eye on, and excellent players at that.
When describe or sort of elaborate on buzz, what are the things that recruits say about Tennessee when you hear about them?
Yeah, absolutely blown away by the facilities up there, quite honestly. Not every school's like that. I mean, people say, well, they say that about every school. No, they don't. No, they don't. Because if they don't bring it up, in essence, that's them telling you they weren't that blown away by it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So they like that. I think they just like that the coaches are young and aggressive and hungry. I mean, they're all over these guys. Now they're very active on social media, so they like that. I mean, I think the funny thing about social media is I think the rest of the world is starting to see that these college coaches are kind of just about as nerdy as the rest of us. They don't know what to say half the time on social media. They're trying to be cool, and it's hard to be cool, but the kids seem to like these guys. Again, they were active in the spring. They have to be seen. People need to see you. They need to know that you want them, and that's what the spring is all about. I mean, we call it the evaluation period, the NCAA does, but the bottom line is they've done a lot of their evaluating by then. I saw Tennessee a lot. I tell you guys, I saw Kentucky everywhere as well, everywhere.
Interesting. Well, last thing with you, what about the Berry twins? Fans ask us about them all the time.
I can't give you an honest, I can't give you an educated answer there. I haven't talked to them recently. I've been on the road a lot. Mm-hmm. I just don't know about them at the moment. I'll tell you what, I'll try to get some info. Next time you have me on, I'll be a little bit better prepared with them. But they're great kids, and they're good athletes, too. I just don't know. I don't know what their thinking is right now.
Well, and I talk
to them.
Keith, I don't think you're out of the loop by any means. That they're very quiet about their recruiting process, so that that's pretty standard from what we've heard. But hey, Keith, real quick, tell people about the website 24/7 Sports and that crystal ball prediction segment that I think is a lot of fun.
Yeah, basically we cover recruiting, obviously. We do what everybody else does, except we think we do it a little differently. Our player pages are just designed to kind of blow you away, and I think when people see them and then compare them to other sites, I'm not a very good salesman, as you can tell. I'm stumbling over every word right now, but that's what we do. We try to cover things a little bit bigger, a little bit better. Do we achieve it? We like to think so, but that's really up for people to decide. But the crystal ball is great because what it does is it allows people, we're accountable for our picks, our predictions of kids, and people get to see, well, what was this guy, this quote-unquote expert? What was his ratio of success? It also shows you what your average days correct were. In other words, was I picking every guy the night before he committed? Well, yeah, anybody can do that. But if you have a long average, if you're correct, an average of 10 days per kid, well, that shows that maybe you knew a little bit. And it's just fun for the fans. It's fun to see them. They get to track the trends. You get to see if everybody shifts on a prediction for a kid from Alabama to Tennessee, then it makes you think, okay, wow, why are these guys shifting? There must be something going on. So it's just another way to keep the readers in the loop.
Interesting. And the assistant coach rankings as well, tracking those commits. It's really cool,
too. Those are great. Assistant coaches, these guys are killing it out there. You really don't know how hard these guys work and tell you, you're either, I guess the women that are married to them know, or you're in our business, because we see them everywhere. People are always telling us, oh, you guys work so hard. Gosh, you guys are everywhere. Let me tell you something. I can speak only for myself. I don't work as hard as any assistant coach. These guys are all over the place. I mean, every school you're at, you're seeing them, and they're hitting 5, 6, 7, 8 schools a day during their evaluation period. There's really no time off for these dudes anymore. But I'll tell you what, I will say that they do seem to enjoy being on the road. It gets them away from all the stresses of the day-to-day in the office. But the assistant coach rankings is a way for people to see who's doing well. I mean, it's that simple. It is what you think it is. Who's recruiting well? How many guys has he been the primary recruiter on? Right now, Damian Craig of Auburn is our number 1 recruiter in the ranking. What's he done? I think he's brought in about 4 4-stars already, okay? And we're halfway home in the 2014 cycle. So it's a good way to see how good certain guys are recruiting each year.
Keith Niebuhr covering recruiting nationally for 24/7 Sports. You can follow him on Twitter. It's NIEBUHR 247. Keith, we appreciate the time. Have a great rest of the week.
Thanks, guys. I'll get you that berry info, I promise.
All right, no problem. You did a good job selling, too. You undersold yourself there. Thanks, Keith. That is Keith Niebuhr joining us here on the new Sentinel Sports Page.